Hey there, good folk. Welcome back to the African Lure Craftsman. You're going to find me a little bit disheveled today because it's been a bit of a torrid week, I must say. A lot of work to be done, bit of a hoarse throat. But we have finished what we said we'd do and completed both sides of our robust Garfish swim bait now. Side A and side B to the same standard. I think it's looking okay. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to talk you through what I've done so far and the various little hassles I might have had, which there were a few, and little hints of advice maybe that might help you if you're doing similar builds. So firstly, we had to lay the foil. That wasn't too much of a problem. We trimmed it to the same pattern and size and scale. If these are actually all lined up, it does line up. It's just the way it lays sometimes, which kind of annoys me a bit. But anyway, that's all done. And getting them to the same level required a little bit of mastery in looking up from the back and various places like that. But we've got that done. We did the yellow on the fin. We did the little subtle silver striations down here, fading. And all the detail and the eye as well. The eye is a little bit of a trick because I didn't have 9mm eyes. I used a 10. Excuse me. And what I thought I'd do is just walk you through that. So I've got hundreds of thousands of eyes, literally. So what I think sacrificing one isn't too much of a problem. So what I'm going to do is just show you how we downsize those eyes. Not rocket science, and not trying to make anyone seem small or anything, but I think it's quite significant in that you can mess this up too. So all of these come with a little bit of a foil backing. I'm trying to expose it there so you can see it. These are kind of like a transparent sort of foil there. But obviously what we don't want to do is we don't want to take that foil off. So there's only one way to sand these, and that's against the foil. So basically holding it foil up, sanding one way like that, and just moving it around. I've got some 600 grit sandpaper here, or water paper. You don't have to wet it though. Just move it around in your fingers. Carry on doing so until you get that eye to the size you want. In my case, it was reducing a 10mm to a 9mm. Yes, you lose a little bit of the detail on the outer side of the eye, but I'm sure you'll all agree that you can't really notice it, so not too fussed. But that's the simple way of taking down eyes to size. Many times, even with my production lures, I find that you've now put prime coats on, you've put 2K coats on, then you go to stick in the eye, and the cavity the eye cavity that you've left, or the recess hole for the eye, has become too clogged with paint anyway, so you have to do this anyway. Bit of a bind, particularly when you're doing high volumes, but it doesn't always happen. It's just that one or two baits that it happens to. So anyway, just a little trick there for the eyes is sanding down the outsides, going against the foil. Otherwise, if you do it this way, the foil just peels off the back of the eye and you've ruined one. Not expensive, but just while we're there, I'll just let you know, because we've talked about the masses of eyes I've had to order. Originally, when I was buying these, we were paying around about $5 for 10. This is when I first started lure building, and I bought lots of them at that time as well. So it was a huge saving just to go and buy those eyes in bulk. A big outlay initially, but a huge saving nonetheless over the long run. So anyway, that's the little eye hack that we've done here. The second thing, guys, you'll have to excuse my throat, as I say, a little bit hoarse. The second thing we did is remove the mask from the fins. We haven't painted the fins yet. We're going to get to that just now, and we'll do that. But I thought it very important to just give some advice on that as well. Sharp scalpel, when you're removing mask, just make sure you break the masking tape, or where you've varnished over it, you break that seal. Otherwise, you rip that masking off and you rip that clear coat off as well. So just get a sharp scalpel, run along the base of the mask, and then peel it off carefully. The same applies to the tail, of course. a little simple thing, because I've actually ruined many lures like that. Of course you can fix them, but takes a little while and a little bit of work to get that done. So that's the second thing I'd like to just mention there. What I haven't done, and it's something that I'm going to have to, is remove this plug. So bearing in mind now, we've now put a couple of coats of 2K on this. Well, we've 2K'd one side and then 2K'd the other and made it meet up. You might notice on camera there's a little bit of stippling where the overlay of 2K has happened. That doesn't bother me at all. Your epoxy will get rid of that, so it's not a train smash at all. As I say, sharp new scalpel blade, and just make sure there's no 2K that is connected to that plug. Not that we're all going to have plugs. Very easy to make a mess here when you pull that plug out, and I hope I don't. I still could, who knows. Then we're going to have to do a quick fix job. But anyway, just make sure all these things aren't glued in there properly. I'm hoping that'll do it. I purposefully didn't spray a lot there. Let's just see if this works. See, the problem is it's such a tight fit. When it does come out, it's just going to jerk out and we're going to have a bit of a problem. So I'm going to try and do this with a little bit of finesse. Perfect. There we go. So that's the plug removed, which brings us to another problem. We haven't got any lifting of the 2K there off the paint. I might have to do a little bit of a clean up in here later. Well, I will anyway, because the one thing I've been thinking about is epoxy. There's no way I can have that plug in there when I epoxy, which means I'm just going to have to be very careful here. There's going to be some overlay into the recess, and I'm just going to clean that up with needle files or the like. I'm going to have to do that and make that bib fit. No other way to really do that at this stage. Probably not clear thinking by myself, but hey, it's what it is at the moment, and the way we're going to have to go. What we're going to do just now is we're going to head over to the spray booth and we're going to do the detailing on these fins. I've had a couple of good looks at pictures. We'll go refer to my phone just now, to the original photograph that we copied and traced this from. The colors are pretty matching okay. They're looking okay. And I was looking at the fins of there and then also on there, and then also referring to a few photographs. And what I could surmise from that is we had a bit of a sort of the same tone as the back on the fins, with dark edges over here. And we also remember that we've got that little black spot that's kind of below the dorsal, which we'll get into as well. We're not just going to put a black spot on there. There's no real just black spots on fish. And one of our viewers also commented on the channel, I think it was the last video, how colors are so pixelated on fish actually if you take close-ups. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to use a little bit of gauze, spray the spot in the same place on each side, and then we're just going to go over it with a slightly more opaque tone and kind of bring that to life as well. On the fins, what we're going to do is we're going to do the sandback technique as well. So we'll use a slightly darker tone, paint those fins both sides, all the fins. We're going to sand them back to take the paint off the upper surfaces, and then that'll leave a darker tone in the recesses, and then we'll go spray over with a more opaque color as well before we do the dark edges, and I think that'll kind of do it. The pectoral fin here, I think that's all we need on it. We've got a little bit of yellow. In actual fact, it's very clear on Garfish. If anything, a tiny sort of a little bit of a yellowish tone. But being a foil base on this, I think that's all we can do for that. So we're going to leave that like that. So really, guys, it's just the fins, the dark spot, and then off to the epoxy cabinet, which hopefully we might be able to get to today, but I'm not too sure about that. While we're here, I thought one thing I'd talk about is some of the comments that came up on the channel. And one comment, I think it was from Ken, he joked how or when I'm going to make the actual Garfish that we're going to go throw at big toothy critters, because we can't possibly do that. And it's kind of given me second thoughts about that. I mean, I think I've always said that a production bait like this would be very difficult, but you could mold it. But if we're going to be really honest with ourselves, producing timber baits in high volume is incredibly difficult. Yeah, you can do. I mean, I was kind of at 100, 150 a month, and that was just 7 days a week, the whole lot, 200 a month occasionally. But it's very, very difficult. So something like this, if I was going to do a commercial production, I'd actually look at molding it. And it's a foray I've made recently, is into molding for another bait I've done, which is the bass bird. I think you all know it if you've seen the video. There is a previous video. And it's something we've done with that. And talking about me being busy this week, it's what I was actually busy with. Excuse all the flies. There are rabbits breeding next door, and it just brings in the flies here. But one of the things I was busy with was actually finalizing the molding for the bass bird. And here's a little sample here, if you can see that. That is molded and cast very simply with smooth cast 300 and micro balloons. And it's little experiments I've been making, because there's techniques that I've watched other videos, techniques people use about making your molds and having the vents in the right place, because the bubbles have got to be in the right place. But I've found that a lot of the time it's not very necessary. You've got micro balloons, which I think are 0.5 microns or something. They're tiny little spheres. It actually looks like powder on a table, and it just blows away with the wind because they're so light. And those are inserted into the epoxy or the resin to give you buoyancy. If you just cast straight resin, you threw this in a pool, it would sink. At the moment, I'm casting these with wire and weight, and with the micro balloons, and I can throw this into the dog bowl over there if we wanted to, or into the pool, and it would float in the top just as it's supposed to. A little bit of a science getting the right mixture of balloons to your resin, but that's something you can go through. But it just makes things so much simpler. And I've got quite a bit of interest in this bait at the moment, so I thought it was worthwhile discussing why I'm doing it in resin. One, very difficult bait to make in wood. The originals I made with this particular bird, for instance, I used the grain of the body going lengthways, but I couldn't use the grain of the body going lengthways in the wing. You hit the wingtip here and it's just going to break off against the grain. So I had to cross grain it. So I had grain going one way down the body, and I had grain going the other way, which means it's two parts. Very difficult to make in volume. Only way to do something like this is in resin. It's just something I think I'm going to get more and more into. I mean, I've got a situation now where demand is growing for my lures, and to be brutally honest, I could employ another 5 guys to sit here and help me sand. But a lot of the work on timber lures comes into after the fact that you've assembled and you put them together. Now you've got to sand and you've got to hone them down. Then it's the priming and everything else in between, all of which has a sanding in between as well. So it just takes a heck of a lot of time. On the reverse side, put something like that into a mold. Very simple to do. So what I'll do as well is I'll ask you guys as well, if comment in the comments, if you guys would like to see me mold a couple of these. Maybe we'll do a very brief show after we finish the gar on doing something like that. I wish we could have included you in it, but I was just too busy and I couldn't get the cameras out. But another thing I did was using the stencil technique, is I made stencils for these little birds this last week. I've already used them. As you can see, there's paint on the outsides. But these stencils, using that simple hack, which is on one of our previous channels, simply clip on there. As you can see, they don't even come off. Very tight fitting. And that one clips over the top. And there we have it. I mean, you've got a bird sort of wing pattern, a simple one, but you can just spray that on straight away. So, yeah, I would have loved to have done a show on that, because that was quite no, I wouldn't say a task, but quite interesting doing that. I enjoyed doing that. And I think you guys would have liked to have seen it as well. So, yeah, that's where we went with the bird. I've come up with 5 simple colors for this bass bird. I know we're kind of going away from the topic a little while, but I thought you might find this interesting. That there I'm calling citrus plum. You probably can't see it in this light, but it's got a very intense maroon plum sort of coloured metallic in it, with a dull metallic orangey colour there. And let's be honest, top waters, you don't really need many colours. I think I've got them all covered here. So we've got citrus plum. We've got what I'm calling contrast bone. Bone itself is a fantastic colour, but I've always believed that even when a fish is looking up in the surface, depending on the light conditions you're fishing with, of course, a little bit of contrast makes a difference. If it can see something, some sort of like striation or some sort of pattern that looks like feathers or scale or whatever it might be, it's a good thing to do. And of course on the underside there as well. So those are two colors. We've got a little native bird here, which is something that's called a red bishop, which you get by waterways, and they nest in papyrus and things like that. And it's often a targeted species of bird, particularly the chicks falling out of nests by bass and things like that. We've got another waterside bird called a masked weaver, which is a bright yellow colored bird. Very simple paint jobs. We don't always need to go to the degree we've gone on this garfish, because it just makes it impossible to achieve any sort of commercial desire, or even if you're not doing it commercially, to produce bulk for your mates, for whoever you're producing for. And finally, the last color in the little bird is the gunmetal blood. So it's really a dark sort of blood red, which you can probably hardly see there, and a gunmetal color on here, which I like to use for topwater over black. Gives the same sort of silhouette, and yeah, there we have it. We were inside there, and I don't think the light was doing this justice. So just a little bit more on these birds. I thought what we'd do is walk out into the sunlight and just show you how some of these colors transition and how effective simple paint jobs can do as compared to the garfish. So if you look at that, not a heck of a lot there. Let's take that out into the sun. Now, as I say, that's using a very, very metallic plum pearlescent. If you can see it over the wings there, just stunning colors. The bottom's the same. We've got all those metallics. See, here's the other dark color. This is the gunmetal, but as you can see, I mean, it looks very dark in the shade. As soon as you transition into the sun, the red stands out, that dark red, which I think is a nice little touch, and that pearlescent glitter stands out as well. So simple paint jobs, I think, sometimes are the most effective. Let's just view these other colors in the sun as well. I mean, very bright. I mean, I think the spectrum's covered. So, I mean, if I went fishing with a topwater lure, it would either be a light or a dark, as simple as that. But I think to cover all spectrums, dirty water, low light, things like that, bright light, I think having two bright colored lures, a bone, and two dark colored lures is perfect. So those are the other colors, very sort of gaudy maybe, but hopefully something out there would be mad enough to eat them. I think they would. And very simple patterns. We're at our spray booth now, and we have in front of us the garbled, and we have the picture we started out from. Looking at the fins, looking at the little black spot, and little things like that. I'm thinking about other detail. One thing I think I'm going to try and do is a little bit of a red gill indentation, what do you call it? It's gill thingy, one of those thingies over there, and see how that goes. Remembering that if we don't like it, we just take it off with a bit of thinners and an earbud or cotton bud cloth, anything like that. So let me just brighten that up again. There we have the garbled. You see that black dot? It's not actually a dot. It's very, very, let me try and enlarge this. I won't enlarge much more, but very pixelated, very all over the place. It's emergence of color in between the scale set. So what I'm going to do is, as I say, I'm going to use a little bit of gauze. I've got some very fine gauze here, and I'm going to spray through that first. Not a very even dot, just a dot, and then we'll just neaten up with a lighter tone over the pixels, so to speak. So that's what we're going to do, the dot. I think we'll start with that first, and then we will go into the tail and the gill. And then we're pretty much done, and ready to go to epoxy. Okay, so there's our black. Remembering, we don't like using dark colors. So I'm not going to do a thick black on here. Get a little bit, this is already quite thin, so I want quite a watery sort of black in there. And I'm going to add a tiny little tone of blue, I think. Tiny tone, just so we don't get anything too stark on there. A little bit more. Let's give that a test. Give it a mix. Yeah, that's fine. So let's get that out of the way. Just a little bit of blue in there, not much. Remembering this is a tint, so it's very, very strong. I think that'll do. You'll hardly notice it. You'll notice it against foil though. That's it. I can see it just there. And what we do for this, very simple. I'm going to remove this tail section again, guys. Make sure my hands are clean. Although not too worried, can clean it up later. Let's just put that aside. Let's reach for our gauze, which is here. Turn this around slightly so we can get the position right. And get that onto there. I'm just going to hold it by hand. I don't think it's important. A little trick I learned a while ago is just to keep things down. Just get a screwdriver or something like that. And I'm going to hold it there. So that dot was literally just below the bottom or behind the dorsal, where the dorsal starts there. So we're just going to do it there. And again, we're not going for anything too perfect. Just check the paint again. That'll do it. Let's check that, take the gauze off, see how it looks. Very slight hint, maybe a little bit black still, but I can tone over that. Very slight. I think I'll do some more, and it doesn't really matter if I don't match up my gauze either, because as you saw from the genuine photo, there's no real form there. I'll try, but it doesn't, that's pretty much on it already. I think a little bit more than we had. There we go. Yeah, that's a little bit more intense. And as you can see, with crossing the gauze over, we've now got some solid lines, some that you can still see, and it actually makes it look more real. I mean, I would just leave that like that, to be honest. I don't think we need anything more than that. I don't think having said I'll tone over it, I don't think so. I think that's quite nice. The thing to do now is to just match it up on the other side as close as possible. So let's get to that. That's fine. Okay, and because we achieved such a nice result, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to lift this, move it, and lay it over there again. Hopefully not in the same place. And do that. Let's have a look. Positioning is perfect. I'm going to do it once more because I didn't quite get emergence of the color or the dark color there. And see how I've just put that on and it's just lined up perfectly. How's that? You'll never do that twice. Okay, that's it. I've got an overlay there now. That's it. Okay. Yeah, better. So let's just check this from the top. Yeah, I think our positioning is correct, and I think it's fine. So if you look from the top, I don't know if you can see the light there. Slightly, yeah, no, it's fine. Perfect positioning. Yeah, nice. So there we go, guys. Our darkest spot is on there. I think now let's get to the gills. To the gill section, and we're going to do a little bit of a hint of a gill there. I'm going to change from what I normally do, and I normally just do a red line on most of my high volume lures. When I say high volume, higher volume. But I think in this case, I think we just want a subtle hint of red there. So I'm going to do a series of dots underneath the gill plate. I think that'll look effective. We can always take it off and change it if not. I've got a lovely red here. It's a much sort of brighter red than what I usually use. This stuff does dry very quickly on the brush though. Often need a little bit of thinners in there just to get it to the consistency that you want. Okay, that should do. And don't forget to just get off any of the remnants. You don't want it to run on there. Get everything out of your way as well. Let's hold it carefully. If we make mistakes, we can remove them. And we're just going to do a little hint of red underneath here, I think. Connected dots. My eyes went blurry there. That's it, a little bit more. And just ending with a tiny couple of dots on the end here. I've done this before and I think it looks quite effective. I think we'll do one more tiny thing there, just like that. Very subtle. We'll take this up a bit behind the gill, a bit more paint again. Let's get that brush into a sharp edge. Just, guys, often you'll have one hair sticking out or something like that, and really, particularly if you haven't 2K'd it, it could be a nightmare. You're putting a line where you don't want it. Going to make this a little bit thicker. I'm shaking like a leaf. That's it, just like so. And I think that is exactly what we want. Just a little red hint, a signature of a gill there, and that's all we need. So we're going to flip this. I'm going to actually turn it upside down. A lot better for me to work like that and paint away from me than do it any other way. So a bit more paint on the brush here, a bit more thinners into the cup or the lid. Get that to the right consistency. You want it falling off the brush. You don't want to have to repeat strokes. That's it. Okay, so now we started from here. I'm using my finger as a support here. It was a bit thicker, we ended there, that's fine. Then we had a series of lines or little dots just following through. That's one. Bit more paint. Dries very quickly, this. Let me just refer to the other side quickly. Yeah, we had one, then another one. These are sable hair brushes, by the way. What I usually use for oil painting. That's it there, and then one dot here. That'll do. So we got that little hint. Let's just see that they match up. They don't often match up precisely the first time, but those actually do. And that's all we need to do, I think, on the gills. Very, very thin line. I don't want to put too much red on here. As we say, we're going for realism. If the gills were flared some, and we'll do that one day with another build, I would maybe put a lot of red and actually even carve gills into underneath the gill plates. I mean, that's something I've done as well. But for this, I think that hint is plenty. We are here at the spray booth, and I'm studying this picture again, because what I've done is I've gone through a whole lot of photos. I think you've seen them before I've got on here, and there's no real true indication of coloration on the tail or the fins. The only thing I can see colour on is this. This is actually not a photo, as you can see. It's a painting, I think done for New South Wales Fisheries, Australia. But we're allowed to use a little bit of artistic license. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through or go by this picture here and use those sort of colours. So what we've got there is we've got the same sort of tones we've got on the back. And I'm going to use that. So if you remember this green, we mixed this for the line above the silver lateral, and we also used a similar green with a metallic on the back there. So I'm going to use this as my first light lay to sink into the grooves of the fins. If it's too dark, it won't really matter, because we'll tone over it a bit later. And then what we can do is we can put a bit of a darker hue on the top of the tail, on the back of the tail, and also on the dorsal there as well. So I think let's start with that. I'm not going to mask. I'm going to just go freehand brush with this. Again, not too concerned because I got 2K there and the hues are the same anyway. So let's just start that. Get the phone out of the way. And what we're going to do is move this out of the way. I'm going to hang it actually. And I'm just going to do this tail section first. So let me just hang that there. And I'm going to do the tail section here. It's going to look a bit odd first, but I wouldn't worry too much. Just freehand, light hues. Okay, and I'm going to go a darker base around the bottom here. Just turn that around to actually get a better view. That's fine. Once more over that, I think. We still want it to be very opaque and see-through, so I think that's fine. That's enough for that. Let's just turn it over and do the other side in the same places. Darker. Looks very green for now, but I wouldn't worry about that at all. Okay, there we go. Got a little bit of green on the white there, not fussed. And the other side, bit of a mark there. I can get those all off. Okay, and I think that'll do. So let's just try it on this first before we go and do it on all the other fins and see if that works. So I'm going to apply a little bit of heat. Not looking too bad actually as it is like that. Just apply a little bit of heat there. That should be dry, and then we're going to grab our 600 grit. Got a little pre-cut piece here, and we're just going to rub that off, leaving it in those grooves. So let's also use a grain. So let's go, obviously the striations are running that way. Let's not put any cross marks, not that this is heavy enough to do that, but just run the way of the grain. And just turn it as you go. Nice, nice, nice. I can see that leaving it nicely in those grooves. So what I'm going to do is do the other side, because we won't get a clear indication just yet until we've done this other side of exactly how it is looking. Yeah, that's okay. Looking okay. Get right into the bottom here, right into the bottom here. I might have to fold this actually, and having just said go with the grain, I'm just going to go contrary to what I said quickly, just to get into the base there. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay, not looking too bad. The only way to really check this out is get some water and put it on both sides, and then you can see where the paint's been left, which I think is perfect. It's perfect. I mean, I'm liking it just like that actually. So I'm going to put a few little light hues over maybe the top, and then I think we're going to go straight into that darker edge on the top and the back of the tail here. I'll clean this up later and we'll present it to you and show you with that cleaned up, but I think that's quite nice. I don't quite like that green, so that's why I think we go over it with a lighter sort of milky, the same tone we used on the back here. So let's put a few drops in there. That's fine. I want it very, very, very opaque. Mix that up. Okay, a little bit more actually, a little bit more. That's fine. Move that out of the way. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Okay, give it a mix as well. Check it out. Okay, a bit more thinners. I don't want to see too much of this at all. I just want it to basically null out that greenish effect on some parts of the fin, and we'll go from there. There's the lid there. Okay, so let's go on this bit here. I'm going to put my thumb over there just to stop getting paint on anything else, and let's just try and tone. Yeah, that's nice. I sometimes think you probably can't even see what I'm seeing on camera, but I can definitely see it here. It kind of tones out and puts a little bit of a milky sort of gleam onto these areas. I'm going to leave the bottom a little bit different. It's like so, and let's get to the other side. I think you could see that, because you can see the difference between that side now and that side now being greener. So let's go over this as well. I think that's it. Once we get the dark edges on there, that'll be perfect, I think. I mean, if you held this up against the light, like so, you can see the dark paint in all those grooves there. Yeah, so quite nice. Okay, just so we can have some continuity, let's just finish up with the dark colors. Then we'll go back and finish the other fins. What I should have done is I should have done the darker edge first, then done the sandback. So I'm going to redo the sandback, and I'm going to put the dark edge on now and then sand it back. Why? Is so that I can sand the dark off the flats and leave little stripes of dark into the grooves there. So let's just do that quickly. Might look a little bit strange initially. That's a bit thick. This paint is settled in here. Always good to mix it again. That's better. So let's just start very, very carefully on the top edge here. Okay, now we'll do the back here. Just like so, a little bit leading down the tail here. Not much. And let's do that other side now, which is going to be a little bit, although we also need to do the top here, guys. So just an opaque black. Or not actually black, it's just a kind of a gunmetal-y color. Okay, let me turn that around. I've just got to figure out how to actually hold this now. This is always the difficult thing. Okay, I'm going to have to hold it like that. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, and then here, get the angle right. A little bit up there again, and then a little bit around here. That's it, and don't forget to do the actual inside here and the back. So guys, there we have that darker hue. I'm going to go over it a bit more. Sorry, just one sec. I'm just painting, thinking as I paint here. I'm going to extend that line a bit more into there we go. Okay, and let's do the same on this other side here. You can see the difference. Much harder to do this side, I must say. That'll do. And I'm going to do something else, guys, a little bit unorthodox really. There is a darker sort of hue in the pictures I've seen here. Just a very light, which I'm going to sand off, just light here. That's it. And here. We might actually find that just sanding it back will be enough on this. A little touch up on the dark. So there we have those dark edges. Let's get our water paper again, give it a little bit of a dry. Not too much spray over onto the body there. In fact, there's hardly anything. That's fine. So let's give that some water and then find a nice clean bit there. And let's sand that off again, see what we get. Oh, wow, 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 wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's exactly what we need. And I think I'm going to leave it like that. Experimentation, guys, that's the way to do it. Don't be too afraid to throw paint on something. Take the precautions necessary to protect yourself, like the 2K over your previous paint, so you're not rubbing off everything. But that's looking really, really nice, really realistic, I think. So let's do the same this side. Yeah, wow, look at it. Get it right into there where I painted that other slightly darker color. I think that's it. Maybe a little touch up. Get in there a bit. Let's get our clean cloth. And that, guys, a little bit more black on that side I see. But that, guys, gives you such a nice effect. because now we've taken off the straight edges of the dark line there, and it's given you kind of a striated effect there that looks more natural, looks more realistic. I think the bottom, we'll refer to the photo again, but I think the bottom was kind of plain, but I will check again. And it's been so long since I've actually caught a garfish, I can't remember. I wish that my memory was crystal clear, because we used to catch quite a lot in places like Lake Illawarra in Australia when I lived there, and all over Sydney really. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to touch up those areas there a little bit, but not much. And I think we'll be done with that, eh? Just go over those those little edges there. A tiny bit here. And then the same on the other side. And there we have it. I think we're pretty happy with that. What I sometimes do is I get the paintbrush and I just paint on lines or striations down the fins. But I think that looks quite effective, and we don't want to go too overboard. So what I'm going to do now is get the other fins done. And then we're going to put this guy together and put it down and see what it looks like, I think. So let me get onto that quickly now. One thing, we've finished up the fins now. We've done the sandbag technique using the various tones that we used on the lure build. I think it's lacking something, and I've seen it on garfish before. We used it on the pectoral fin. There's just a little tone of ochre, yellowy sort of ochre. So I'm going to do a mild tone. I'm not going to do it all over the fin. I'm just going to do it in patches, which is at the top of the tail here and maybe on the dorsal. I don't think there's anything on the bottom, but just very mild, as I say. So I've got a little bit of paint here, mix it into the cup. That's enough. And let me just do another mix here. And I'm going to get a tiny dab, just to brighten that, a tiny dab of a very dull yellow. Tiny dab, it kind of just brightens it up a little bit. These aren't very loud sort of colors, so they're not going to really shine out or stand out much. I think that's fine. So I'll just on the top there put a bit of a yellowy hue. Yeah, I like that. Do it on the other side here. You can actually even see it through. And I think that's plenty. We might just do a little bit on the underside here. There and there. It's actually hard to know you're getting in the right place when you can't see it, but I think I am. Yeah, and I think that really does actually just change things. So let's do a little hint here as well. And I think we'll be done. That's enough. Shows straight through, so that's plenty. That's all we need, guys, I think. Get that tail back on there. And let's have a look. There we have it. So we finished up everything. I think that's as far as we take this build, except for the epoxying. We're not going to do that this week. It's just getting too long again. And I think what I've got in mind is to do the epoxying in the next episode, and then do some pool tests in a clear pool. So a little story I want to tell you before we go outside to check this guy in the sun and see how the see-through fins have come out and everything, is we nearly lost this build entirely. I've been meaning to tell this to you for a while because it happened before last episode, but I forgot then. I'd gone to test it in the pool, and I came back and I put it on top of my car to dry, and some hours later, having got on with other work, I decided to go to the shops. Fortunately for me, I was stopped at the gate by one of my workers, who then said to me, "Greg, what is that on your roof?" And there it was, the Garfish, still there. It's a very steep driveway I've got. I think you've seen it before, but it was still there, because we could have lost this anywhere on the way to the shops that I shop at, and that would have been the build over, unfortunately. But anyway, let's get outside, check it out in the sun, and see what it looks like. So guys, there's what we've done today, and that's about all we're going to do. I think it's come out quite nicely. You'll notice there's a little bit of dullness on the fins here. They're looking quite good, I think. But as soon as we epoxy that, that's going to clear that up somewhat, and it's going to give it a whole new sort of lifelike appeal, I think. But anyway, if you'd like to see the stencil hack that we referred to earlier, check out the link above. And if you'd like to see more, stay tuned for the next episode. Click like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next week.